Hello, everyone. It's Noah. Welcome back to In Between the Lines. You may notice that the setup is a little bit different because I have a very special surprise. I have a very special guest for us who I will not be able to do justice. So, if you would like to introduce yourself and tell them what you are known for, that would be fantastic.
My name's Michael Ward, Michael J. Ward, and I suppose I'm known for the DestinyQuest gamebook series that it's probably been running now for probably about 12 years. So it's been going for a while, and it all kind of started out of an obsession with a little known game called World of Warcraft that I don't think many people have heard of.
Oh, yeah, no one at all.
No, but yeah, no, I was a bit of an addict, and this is obviously going back to its heyday, and my book series was basically born out of my complete obsession with that game and wanting to kind of encapsulate that experience of playing a hero, customizing your hero, fighting monsters, getting loot, upgrading a hero, becoming more powerful. And I just felt like no one had really tried to kind of capture that experience fully in a game, in a book. And then I was trying to work out how I could do that.
Yeah.
And then I think that's how I kind of went back to my game book roots, of the old, Fighting Fantasy books and,
Yeah.
Ian Livingstone, Steve Jackson, all that lot. And kind of thought, I wonder if I can sort of bring that sort of system up to date, make it a choose your own adventure book, but you then bring in all these RPG aspects that you'd be kind of familiar with from playing, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Guild Wars, all those kind of things. So that's it, really. Sorry, that was a bit of a long-winded introduction.
No, that's absolutely fine. No, because to put something like that, that's what drew me into Destiny Quest, is that you could do all these things that you said where you can actually customize that. And I've never had a book where I could do that properly before, because obviously I grew up with like fighting fantasy. So to have this behemoth of a book do that,
Yeah.
it was actually really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I do have a habit of writing very large books, and I just can't stop myself. It's so frustrating because even my latest one, which only just come out, Wrath of Ragnarok, I was determined for it to be like half the size of all the others, and be cheaper to produce and everything. And then I ended up writing the biggest one yet. So it's like I'm just
bigger.
Oh, it is. Yeah, unfortunately, it's 736 pages.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's really good. How much is it to like the cost of making this? Like, how much are we talking?
Well, I mean, my first three books were published by Galance.
Yeah.
And since I am the fourth book, I've been publishing them myself. So, but I've been kind of sort of blessed to discover, the Kickstarter, is a really great sort of fundraising.
Yes, you did really well on Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's just kind of a good way of reaching out to fans, giving them lots of extra goodies. That like loot cards and art postcards and stuff like that. And it helps, fantastically in kind of, covering a lot of, the artwork costs and, things like that. And, I make a small little bit for myself
Yeah,
to kind of live
you
on.
need
So
to.
I'm not living in a cardboard box,
Yeah.
So, they are quite pricey books to produce because, as there's like, they have the color inside with the maps. There you go. And obviously, they're big books, weighty books. And also in the latest one, there's probably the most artwork I think I've done for a Destiny Quest book, because unlike the fighting fantasy books, there's not a lot of in the previous books. There's not a lot of internal art.
Yeah.
I tend to prefer to describe scenes and characters and monsters through my prose rather than slapping in a big kind of spoiler, image that you're going to see every time you flick past it,
Yeah.
So I am kind of a little bit adverse to kind of showing too much through pictures, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But then there's a whole, load of people that really do love that kind of stuff and keep going on at me for like, oh, we want more artwork in Destiny Quest. So it's like, I'm kind of, it's something I'm thinking about more,
I mean, you could always release like some sort of like art book instead, because a lot of people are doing that. That maybe you could do something separate with that.
Yeah.
Because I like the idea.
Yeah, I did do the World Companion, which is like a kind of
yeah.
I suppose you'd call it like a campaign book, which kind of goes into the sort of lore of the world, goes into a lot of the factions, and this was probably a opportunity where I did do quite a lot of so there's loads of internal artwork in this to illustrate the different characters, and there's like an atlas section as well at the back with maps. So that was kind of my way of appeasing those people that were sort of about to, throw me on a bonfire for not doing enough internal artwork. So.
Oh yeah. No, I think it's fantastic. I like the idea of like it being in writing, because obviously it's all about the imagination. And obviously what someone describes and what you imagine can be completely separate things to what someone just puts in as a picture. So
also, like I was saying, when with the old Fighting Fantasy books, I mean, the artwork is iconic, and it's fantastic. But at the same time, when you're flicking through the book as you're making choices, you do end up seeing this artwork as you're going through it. And, I do feel like it sort of spoils things, or you get to that point where it's like, oh gosh, I never reached that monster. I wonder what I don't know. It just kind of gives away too much of the story, I think.
Yeah,
in my opinion, I'm probably alone.
No. I have to agree, because a lot of people, when you're especially a kid and you're in this, you'll put like a finger in one and you kind of flick to what's going to happen, and then you'll see a picture and you're like
5 fingers.
And you'd be like, maybe not.
Yeah,
no, absolutely. How did you even get the idea to even, like, obviously you said you were inspired by World of Warcraft, and obviously you had the ideas of the story, the environment, the characters, the quest and everything, but how did you even get it into a format of a book? Because that's a lot of work.
I suppose when I first started, I think I just went back to what, the sort of roots of my idea, which was kind of World of Warcraft and games of that ilk. And that's how I sort of thought of the map system, and thinking that I kind of wanted at least a vague sense of an open world, or a geographic space, like the zones that you get in. And so I think that's how I started to kind of plan the story through different acts or maps, and then putting your sort of different color coded quests, that change in go up in difficulty. So I think that was just the way I attacked it, and I just started writing each individual quest.
Okay.
And I don't think I was really intending for it to be the size it was, but because of the structure I'd created, it inevitably just expanded into this, quite, gargantuan thing, which it still is to this day, so. Yeah,
especially compared to Fighting Fantasy, which is like a third the size of this.
Well, I mean, what makes me laugh is there's a single quest in my latest one, Wrath of Ragnarok, which is probably the size, if not bigger, than an actual Fighting Fantasy book. That's just like one quest, really. But admittedly, it does expand into a lot of, interesting things. But that did kind of make me smile to think, Mike, why do you do this? Why do you do this?
Why do you do this to yourself?
Right. Yeah. But hey.
Is this how you actually envisioned the whole series to even go when you first started
it? Yeah, sort of. I think I kind of had a overarching plan, like a kind of vague plot in my head.
Yeah.
I think the first book for me was a little bit problematic. The Legion of Shadow. It's not my favorite. And I think in terms of the fact that I was still experimenting with my idea. Yeah. But also there was a little bit, because I had an agent at the time who was kind of pushing me to sort of aim it a little bit more kind of towards a younger market. Yeah. And I think I was resisting a little bit. And so you'll probably see that it starts off quite twee, and then it gets slowly darker, because my real personality comes into it, more and more. And so I feel like it's a little bit of an uneven kind of narrative tone to that book. But I think I learned so much from that first book. Yeah, that I think you probably agree with if you've read Heart of Fire, which is book 2, and any of the other ones. I just learned from every mistake I made in Legion of Shadow, and The Heart of Fire. I still even look back at that as maybe the best of the books I've written, just for its complete, just the balance, and I was really just happy with what I achieved with that. Yeah, it kind of was the DestinyQuest book I always wanted to write. So
you have a favorite of books then?
Well, I mean, they're all like children, aren't they? So it's kind of like you shouldn't have a favorite. And each book I write, I always say, "Oh, this is the best one. This is the best one." And I do think they do get better in terms of, you know, the narrative and the characterization.
Yeah.
But when I do look back at I don't know what it is about Heart of Fire, but I just feel like I nailed that one, you know.
Right, yeah.
Perfectly. You know, it was a self-contained story. It had the 3 acts, and I feel like it branched enough to give people a lot of choice.
Yeah,
you
no,
know?
absolutely.
So I feel like it was the one that ticks the most boxes for what I think I originally set out to achieve, you know.
Yeah, no, it definitely is between them all from Legion of Shadow, like going into the 2, you do see that how you got to be more like yourself with writing.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
It's lovely to see that. Absolutely. What is your kryptonite as a writer?
Oh, I don't know. That's I don't know really.
That's a tough question.
Because I mean, I think at first it was dialogue. You know, when I first started writing, you know, Legion of Shadow, I feel like I was really weak with dialogue, and in some ways I was kind of making the dialogue in the first book a little bit cheesy to kind of like tie in with the idea of it being World of Warcraft, and you know, I don't know, just kind of trying to capture that sort of online kind of chatty experience. But then as I sort of developed on, what I've really started to do is really study other writers and how they sort of encapsulate characters in the way they speak. So it's not just about actions, but you know, just the sort of the pattern of their
the personality.
Yeah. So I mean, so I'd say that's probably started out as a bit of kind of a kryptonite, but you know, I think I've kind of got. I mean, particularly with Rays of June and the last one I wrote, because there's so much characterization going on now. Because you're part of like a party of adventurers, so there's just so much more interaction, and I do feel like I've kind of really nailed, you know, the characters. I think you get a real sense of the different.
They're very lifelike.
As
we've gone through the books,
what
they've
I kind of really had to work at, was to turn characters from being these sort of 2-dimensional NPCs. You know, they just appear and they're kind of like, oh, we're here to just do exposition or give you a quest, and actually turn them into real, living, breathing people that actually also with your interactions you can impact on their own stories. And I think that's going to be really cool as people play, you know, this sort of trilogy of books I'm on now. You know, you'll really see these companions, that characters that you've got sort of kind of evolve alongside with you. A bit like if you play Dragon Age Origins and you know how you kind of have companions and you sort of
I love Dragon Age.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm probably moving more towards, is that much more detailed and nuanced kind of characterization of different of your companions.
No, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. So you have a new spin-off series that you're working on?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yes, and a new book that's coming out. Or is it already?
Yeah. So Wrath of Rome literally it's actually out now.
Yeah.
On UK Amazon. It'll be out on, you know, other worldwide distributors probably end of next week. And for Kickstarter backers, because I know they'll probably be annoyed at hearing that, I am off to my publishers next week. Well, actually, I don't know when this is going to go out actually. So the 4th and 5th of August anyway is when I'm heading to my publisher to sign all the books and get the Kickstarter stuff out. Yeah. So so that's that. But yeah, so I have a spin-off book that I've started already, a spin-off series. And so this new series is set in the DestinyQuest world.
Yep.
It's called DestinyQuest Raiders. And it's a very different slant to my other books, which are quite, as you know, hefty. They're very deep. There's it's for people that really love their sort of RPG experience. You know, there's a lot of dice rolling, there's a lot of strategy with the combat. Yeah. But what I'm writing now is kind of a DestinyQuest light kind of experience. So it has a sort of completely new combat system that I've developed, which is diceless. So there's no dice rolling whatsoever. So you can technically just play through the books with just a pencil, an eraser, and that's it. Oh, wow, and yet it will still have a kind of a lot of the strategy that you're used to with the normal books,
Yeah.
So there's that aspect, and also you're kind of controlling like a team of 4 heroes. So we start off with 2 heroes, then you recruit for another, third, and then a fourth.
Yeah.
And so the story is kind of told differently in that it's not through like just one character. Like in the main Destiny Quest series, it's told through your sort of perception. But in this new series, you kind of sort of jump around from character to character, so to speak, and experience different things, learn about each character as you play through. And I kind of liken it to or the idea I got, from Gauntlet. Do you remember the old arcade game where you could play Valkyrie or Thor or Merlin? Or that's kind of the sort of art style or the kind of feel that I want for this, where each character has their own sort of color palette, and sort of very unique personality, and each one has their own sort of unique role within your team, and you gain experience points as you go through the book, and so it's up to you where you want to spend your experience, which team members you want to level up, so to speak. And one has their own abilities that play off one another, so it's a much more of a game of deep sort of strategy, I think, but also very easy to pick up. So it should appeal to a broader
audience.
And more maybe sort of casual people that don't necessarily maybe not have the time to dive straight into a 700-page mammoth campaign. I mean, because also I do kind of think I sort of see like the main Destiny Quest series as you sort of like full on sort of extended Pathfinder or D&D campaign. Where this new sort of Destiny Quest Raiders series, I think, is probably more of like your sort of Friday night beer and pretzels kind of quick dungeon crawl. And I think that's the way they're sort of different. If that makes sense.
I love that because obviously I do Dungeons and Dragons and all the tabletop sort of stuff, so that does sound like a nice little thing to actually have to play on as well. So I need to grab that.
So anyway, my plan, I'm writing it now really, and David, who's my illustrator, is already kind of working diligently on a lot of the artwork. In fact, I should be getting a cover today, actually.
Ooh.
My plan is to bring it to Kickstarter this year, ideally around November time.
Okay.
But it's just going to depend on, I obviously need to get a trailer done and have enough artwork ready to, make a decent campaign. So that is definitely that is the intention. Because I mean, these books are easier to write, quicker to write, he says, hopefully. And so that's the kind of idea, is that sometimes I need a bit of a break between these massive behemoths. And so Destiny Quest Raiders could be a nice little sort of filler books, really, that I can do to feed people's Destiny Quest addiction.
Absolutely.
While I seek therapy and prepare myself for starting the next
for therapy.
The next one, because
Jesus. So the Raiders isn't going to be as chunky as the other ones then?
No, I am really, really, really intending it, hopefully, to be probably a third of the size, but I know what I'm like. So I don't know, but it is going to be smaller. But it might end up a little bit chunkier than I'm imagining, because I don't want to give too much away, but the way the combat's done, there'll be a chunk at the back of combat chart things. So that might take up a bit of space, but
no, that'd be fine though, wouldn't it? I was going to say, like, how would you separate this from other sort of game books that are coming out, like, as competition? What can people use to separate this from the others?
I suppose, the only thing that I can think of that's similar, there's probably a couple of game book systems that are similar, which is obviously Fabled Lands, which has this sort of very sort of open world.
Yes.
And then I haven't actually read or played any Legendary Kingdoms.
No,
which
I
is a kind of
haven't.
recent one, but I know that has an open world feel to it. I mean, I don't think mine necessarily are so much open world. I mean, they have the maps, and you do have your sort of quests, but I think what separates or differentiates mine is I think it's just the level of two things really: the level of customization for your character or your hero, because in each book there are literally hundreds and hundreds of different items, which just as you would in like an RPG campaign, they have different statistics, different abilities, but also there'll be like an item for like your cloak, slot, or your trinket slot, talisman, ring. So there's a deep amount of customization, as well as the fact you can you choose your own path. So it'll be like rogue, warrior, mage, and you can pick up careers which give you other abilities. So and I think as I progress with the series, there's a lot of different the play styles are very different now. So if you went through and played with a rogue, it'd be a very different experience now to playing with a mage, in terms of just the mechanics of how they play, the way they combine abilities, strengths and weaknesses. So there's that aspect. And then also I think the one thing that I do really push in my books that I've not really seen in any other game book, but so don't shoot me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's any other game books that do like strategic combat. So what I mean by that is that every single combat in DestinyQuest, the monster has its own AI. So it has its own. Each combat has its own set of parameters or special abilities, and so every time you go into a combat, you're having to adapt the way you play to what the monster's strengths and weaknesses are, or other things that might be happening. So so every combat, you're not just sort of aimlessly rolling dice and you actually have to. I want to create a picture in your head of like this massive battle, and you can therefore imagine as you're using your special abilities and you're casting spells, and then you're discovering what the monster's going to do on combat round 3, and you're like, oh cripes, oh gosh, he's going to be doing that, I need to prepare for that. And so it kind of probably takes more elements from like board games, where you probably see more of that kind of stuff in like board games, like maybe like Oathsworn, if you know that, or the Dark Souls games, or kind of ones where there's or Kingdom Monster and things like that. Just where there's a lot more, so you kind of see that more in a tabletop experience. And I think I'm probably the only game book that has kind of brought that into a game book format.
I absolutely agree with you on that, because I've got Fabled Land, so I know where you're coming from with that. But all the other sort of game books I've got, they've never had that sort of like system going on with it. So I do like that's like what I said, like obviously the things that drew me into it was not only that the customization, but the actual fighting style in it. It's absolutely brilliant to have that difference from others that are going on at the moment.
And actually, interesting enough, I mean, at the moment, I've taken a pause from writing Raiders because I foolishly promised my Kickstarter back because I'd write this little expansion, and I've kind of got to honour that. So I'm writing this it's like a bonus dungeon crawl, dungeon delve called the Black Needle.
The Black Needle.
Yeah, but what's really interesting about it is that it's the first time I'm kind of exploring co-op play or party
that's
play.
Cool.
So what will happen? So it gives an opportunity for, if you're like the main person who's bought Wrath of Ragnarok, I call them the story hero. So you're the one that's going through and you're playing this book. There's an opportunity later then that you could actually invite, say, a couple of friends who might be interested in the series but have never picked it up. And you can go, okay, do you want to join me? We're going to do this dungeon. It's called the Black Needle. And you're going to be helping me get loot. But you're also going to be leveling up your own characters in their own way. That. And so what's been really interesting is that I can bring in lots of really kind of fun, with some of the combats, kind of fun mechanics that you would only really ever get if you're sitting around a table with a bunch of other people. And I think that could be really, I don't know how popular that concept will be. Maybe a lot of people just play it solo anyway, but it's for those few people that might think, do you know what, I could actually get X, Y, and Z together, beer and pretzel night, and introduce them to DestinyQuest in a very simple kind of fashion. But then they'll think, okay, maybe this is actually something quite cool, and
It's funny you should say you would bring up the cup thing, because I have a friend named Justin, and we keep talking about game stuff and how, obviously, with the solo role-playing stuff, we understand, but he's always wanted to happen where someone could join in with him. So the fact that you're working on stuff like this, I think it's absolutely going to, like, floor him. So he's going to be really excited about that for sure.
Yeah, cool. Well, the thing is that you'll have to, play through most of Wrath of Ragnar to get to it. Then.
Oh, we'll do that. Don't you worry about that.
So, but yeah, no, it's kind of something that is kind of an experiment for me. So if it kind of works really well, then it might be something I can do a lot more of.
I would love that.
Because I actually, honestly, didn't know. I mean, I've still got to play test it. So, but I mean, I feel confident that I've got quite a sort of, streamlined system for how other people can sort of support the main hero, who's probably going to be doing the majority of the work, because they've got about 6,000 million abilities.
Yeah,
and they know the game system. But you've got, but your other characters will be able to have a significant impact on, various aspects of a combat, and and you're always going to need your healer anyway, aren't you? So.
Oh god, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm a full flat in any type of game. I'm always like, I want the potions, I want the healing, and everyone else can suffer.
Yeah.
So was it my friends were playing Baldur's Gate, and I literally just took all the potions. So like Baldur's Gate 2 and 1. How many books do you think will be in this series that you're working on?
The main one or the new one? Or...
The new one.
Oh,
Raiders.
I honestly don't know. I mean,
you don't know that for it,
because the reason that the idea, in a way, came from, I wrote this campaign book, the World Companion.
Yeah, the World Companion.
At the back of this, there's like an atlas, and it goes into all the different zones of the world.
Yeah.
And within all that, I kind of give some sort of ideas, or lore about different places. And by writing that, I kind of gave myself about 6,000 million ideas for, like, stories and campaigns and things like that. And the likes of which that I probably could never have the time to write about in a proper full-on DestinyQuest book.
Yeah.
So what this Raiders series allows me to do is I can visit lots of different places in the world.
Yeah.
And do some really fun stuff. And jump around from different places, and I'm not too
restricted. You're not stuck in one setting.
By having to write a mammoth. I feel like my main series is really telling a very important, very big story.
Yeah.
And the Raiders one's a bit more, like I said, a kind of a more sort of not a minor adventure, but it's kind of like more of a self-contained, extended dungeon crawl.
Like a one shot.
Yeah, exactly. So with Raiders, it could just go on and on and on. I mean, if it's popular and people love it, I can just knock out 20 if they want.
Even better for you.
So they can just keep going. But I'm just doing. Obviously, I just want to see how the first one is received, and whether it can reach out to a broader audience.
Yeah, no,
so
absolutely.
Interesting.
No, I'm excited about that. I am excited about that. Here's an interesting question, though. What advice would you give to someone who wanted to get into writing a sort of game book?
A game book, specifically?
Something like what you've done with DestinyQuest.
I suppose, I think it's just having, I think what it comes down to is having a unique idea. Because I feel like, the market is a little bit sort of saturated at the minute with a lot of game books. It feels like everyone, including their grandma, is writing a game book. Sometimes it feels like that. And that's nothing against the the game books. That's kind of great for the genre. Yeah. But I think I always have this philosophy of I wouldn't want to bring anything to market that I didn't feel was doing something different. So I think first and foremost, it's kind of like having that really strong concept of what would make my game book, or my idea stand out from the crowd.
Yeah.
And so, for example, for me, obviously, it was the kind of bringing in the kind of World of Warcraft elements and things like that. But and the similar with Raiders, I've come up with this different combat system, which I don't think has been done before. So I feel like there has to be a core mechanic that sort of really will grab people.
Yeah, no,
And
absolutely.
then from then, it's just having a clear sense of your story or
Yeah,
your overarching story. Because obviously, when you're writing a game book, you're branching, giving lots of choices. And I think it could be very easy sometimes if you're starting out writing a game book to just kind of go with the flow, maybe, and not
yeah,
quite know where it's going. And then if you do that as an author, you're going to get lost yourself. I think it's very important that you kind of know your starting point, your middle point,
yeah,
and your end point, and then you can branch as much as you want, but you want to get to those milestones to make sure that your story stays coherent.
yeah.
And I think that's the important thing, is to kind of, you know, have a sense of your, you know, where you want readers to the milestones of your story.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's really good advice. I think the people who obviously enjoy reading these sorts of things, and obviously your books, I think they'd love that. So I think they would love that piece of information, because I don't think a lot of people would take that into consideration. Just, I'm going to make it and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a bad thing to do. But, I'm guilty of it sometimes with starting a quest, and I kind of have a rough idea of where it's going. But sometimes you could argue, well, sometimes that's a good way of just going with the flow, and sometimes you kind of hit on a really cool idea and you can incorporate it, or you know, but you do kind of tend to eat up a lot of pages,
yeah,
which I'm very guilty of. You know,
yeah.
just by kind of, perhaps if I'd planned it a little bit better at the beginning, I perhaps wouldn't have, you know, had so many, you know. But you know, sometimes you just got to go with it. So sometimes I can be a bit of a hypocrite and, you know, go a bit crazy. But...
No, that's absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, we're running out of time on this Zoom thing, but I appreciate everything that you've answered. You're absolutely amazing. I enjoy your books a lot. My nephew does so much, so he's gonna be really excited about everything. So the fact that not only you're getting like me being the older generation, but you're also getting the younger generation as well.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's really nice.
Is there anything you would like to say to anyone at all before we end this?
Buy my books, please.
Please.
Please support a penniless author, you know, so I'm not living in a cardboard box in an underpass in about 2 years' time. But I think what I would say is, obviously, you know, follow my social media if you can. You know, my Facebook, Twitter, if we're allowed to still call it Twitter or X or whatever it's called.
I don't know what that's about anymore.
I know. What am I supposed to say? Follow X or yeah. But you know, because obviously I'll be giving updates on the new series, you know, the new spin-off series. So I think if people just, you know, want the latest info, check out my official site or my social media, and I'm pretty good at keeping people updated with what's going on.
Yeah, I see that you're very much responding to everyone, especially on Twitter. So yeah, no, I'll put all the links down below for everyone, so they can definitely go out and check every single thing. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, it's been an honor. Thank you.
You've been lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. I hope your August game book extravaganza goes well.
I've been excited. I've been wanting to do one for ages, so I'm really excited about it. Yeah. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, cool.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, then. Appreciate it.
You've been absolutely amazing. Thank you very much, bud.
Thank you.
Cheers.